Captains first as we get rolling. So offensively will be Marcus Mariota. Defensively it'll be Sheldon Day, and on teams Tress Way. And so we love that part of Fridays, and getting a chance to say a few words about the guys, and everybody kind of gets fired up. Speaking of that, man, we're fired up for this opportunity. We really are. Back in February I said like doing hard shit with good people, and times like that's not why I got into coaching, but man, it is why I do love it. And you get to go through it and build strong bonds and connect even more. And so that's where it comes from, like the bonding of players and coaches and teams and growing. So we're ready to get rocking. And all that said, let's get rocking with you guys.
Is Marcus Lattimore playing this weekend?
He, in fact, we're going to go huddle up now. We did 3 practices to get some space. We're going to check on the speeds and just kind of go all the way through it, Nikki. We're pumped that he's certainly closer, but we're going to huddle up today and into tomorrow to see where exactly we stand. We got a pretty strong process to go through, and the player is a part of that too. So we're going to make all decisions, to protect the team first. But man, is it good to have him back out there and get going. You can feel his energy about it too.
Bobby Wagner, I know you guys worked with him. Obviously, you've talked a lot about him, but does it ever surprise you to see the way he's playing at year 13?
We were, I think it might have been last week, Nikki. We were doing a tackling drill, and so there was somebody coming from the side with a bag, and the way you want to do it is hit on the rise. So when you're stepping into it, you're near foot. If you were coming at me, left foot down, left shoulder, left hit. And so on, the coach or the player, whoever had the bag, was going into it, and I thought to myself, how many times has he done that? And I just looked up his name to see. So when we were showing the clips the next day, I put the number 1,045, and that was the tackles he's had. So I thought, if he's had 1,045 tackles, I said, there's been 10,000 more in practice of that technique. So that probably summed up. It was an easy drill that you could, go to that down, near foot shoulder, hitting on the rise. Like that's the deliberate practice that's there. And I think that's the message, like with him not saying a thing, it said everything. Like, I'm going to do it right over and over and over again. I remember Teddy Atlas telling me a story about training a fighter, and it was talking about a jab and his elbow not being able to go out. He said, damn, we did it so many times, he couldn't do it wrong. It wasn't going to come out. It was over and over again. And techniques of Bobby doing it over and over again, just doing it right. That's boring, but that's really like what grit is, like over and over again of things that are like, okay, I know what to do, but still staying in it. So that's one story that would sum it up for me for him.
Do you expect Jaden to be affected by the cold?
We've been out in practice all week, and so we're looking at similar practice. So that's for him and for all his teammates. Like we're an outdoor team, and this is where we play, man. So we practice outside for a reason. We only had one practice inside since training camp. And so didn't have to go in there at all, didn't have to go outside. We had one last Friday that we had to, but by and large, we're going to practice outside as often as we can, and he's done a good job with that.
During the pre-draft evaluation process, did you realize that he hadn't played in inclement weather that much? Did that come up at all?
No.
And is that something, I guess, for you, like, that you think about with a team, I guess, in general? You practice outside, but is there anything else you can do to prepare?
No.
Because following up on that, you see quarterbacks' records in the cold and all that. What makes a bigger difference? Is it more wind? Is it temperatures? What?
Wind for sure, yeah. Because the gusts and that can go. Because and there's different kinds. Like if it's snowing, it's not as cold as some other days that you can get really cold, like the minuses and those things. But yeah, definitely wind's the biggest one, John.
You tend to embrace the moment you're in. Like you're talking about, like the losing streak. Have you always been like that, or that something that you kind of gradually learned to do?
Yeah, I would say I learned to do that. I don't like it to go through it, but there is a part of you that does like that challenge of when it gets a little harder and it gets a little more difficult, that you rise up. It's probably an element of like proving it to go, but I do like the team aspect of it where I know what can come on the other side of the hard, John. So I guess I know what's on the very next side of that. And so that's probably what maybe leads me into knowing that there's, something just around the corner that's about to go down.
Mikey Sanders still just his, I think when you guys got Lattimore, I think my thought was, well, he's probably going to move inside sooner than later. Now it looks like it's going the other way, that he's like clearly the guy you want to keep on the outside. What is this? How has he continued to develop that's impressed you guys?
You got a coaching future there, Ben. You know what impresses me, man, like the most, this sounds unusual, and we've all talked about Mike, like his competitive nature to like find the way and figure it out. And I've loved that he and Sean have already, got connected on some things, and hearing them talk in a meeting or at practice to go through it. But it's probably just the nature that he plays with, Ben, to say wherever you put him, he's going to say, I'll figure that part out. I'll get to that space. And so that's what most impresses me. So we still practice him both spots, like we do with a lot of guys. But it is that competitive nature, man, to dig into the details and get it right. He's got such a good, strong, competitive base that he just won't back down. And I love that about him.
And it's sort of a broad league question. Teams are obviously doing more and more shotgun or pistol, things like that, than they did years back. Well, when it comes to short yardage, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, they saw it again yesterday. It happens every week. Teams will still line up in that spot. And I think we're all on the outside going, wait, why would you not get as close to the line as possible and make the distance between whoever's going to run the ball and the line be as short as possible? What's from a defensive coach's perspective, I assume you like it when teams are running out of shotgun on 3rd and 1, or what do you kind of make of that?
Well, I think you're probably also referring to like the sneak part too, because like the distance in the pistol and if the quarterback's under, it's pretty similar. Sometimes it might be a little bit deeper depending on the depth of the QB, but that's, some guys do like being under pistol where they can get their shoulders squared downhill. So that sometimes is as much as anything, Ben, where if you were running a short yardage play where you didn't want to have to turn too much, where I could be direct access. So sometimes the pistol can help with that. If you're coming on an angle from the side, usually there's like an angling block that takes place, to try to create some movement down. So it's a lot of times how the line of scrimmage is blocked. Can I block down, to cave down a side to find a crease? And then the best of the best short yardage backs really have ability to not jump and bounce. Like there's times for that, and there's times like that crease is only this big and you still have to hit it. I can still remember being taught that by Jimmy Ray, and when Coach Marcus Allen, and like in this high voice that Jimmy had in his in his way. But there's so many coaches that I've learned from, and like Jimmy is one about short yardage, and like Jimmy Ray is a remarkable coach, and so learning how short yardage works from another person's perspective, growing up as a defensive line coach, hearing him teach it, it was really cool. So I've had a lot of experiences like that where I'd want to ask the question, just like you guys are today, why don't you do that? And it's really about the scheme and where the hole and where the play is designed to go. And the best of the best can see that small spot and say, I got to get right through there for the distance to go.
Dan, you're a positive guy, obviously, by nature. When you're going through a streak like this, how difficult is it to shape the message so that it's effective, positive, and not repetitive? Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're always, telling the truth on things, to say, because if you, BS around it, then people will say, well, they're not really getting to the point at hand. You want to make sure that collectively you're responsible for that, and that's, you may have heard me say, execution is coaching and players. And so everybody has seen spots where he said this and this is what happened and didn't take it. I thought one of the things I like about here is that it's a collective and owning that together, and when there's something to own, the coach needs to as well. And when that happens, you'll find the players also start doing that a little bit more too, knowing that they're in that together. So I'm not as Pollyanna all the time. Sometimes underneath, it's very much fire. I don't always show that to you, but I definitely have that side. So, but I tend to think, how do you solve the problem? What's next? And so as opposed to bitching about it, I'd rather think about what you need to do next. What's required? What's the next step? And if I stay into that space, I don't let the anger overtake it to where it just, yelling the F word or, just to do it. Sometimes I do that, but more importantly, in the moment, what's next? What do we need to do to fix this? And sometimes you have hardly any time to make those decisions. Other times you have a lot of time. Let's go back and look at this again. What's the best plan? How do we look at it differently? And so I probably use a combination of both those. But collectively, if you're honest as a group, people will own it more than just, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, because we're a part of it too. And so you better take ownership of that.
Dan, what were the teaching points this week to the D-line in terms of getting home a little more consistently?
Yeah, there was a lot. And when a team, there's a lot of ways to think about it, Dave. Like when the early downs, there's some quick throws. And so that can even include, how do you bat a ball? How do you get your hands and disrupt a throw and a timing of that? And so how do you recognize when play pass happens? What's the different sets? So those were some of the things that we talked about. Drop back, easier to see. Stunts, movements, blitzes, play passes, man. You got to, like, when that moment comes, it's really the studying of the player. I can clearly remember Dwight Freeney just wanting play pass. That was my time. A guy jumped outside, I came under, I spun. And so looking and studying the guy, Dave, we went back to that. That's the homework, not the scheme. Who are you playing against? What is his tail? Where's his hand? And that was their homework heading into the week. We'll take care of the scheme part. You know that player you're going to play against. Kenny?
Hey there.
Hi, Kenny.
At the top of the season, you shared with us 5 categories. I think it was after week 1, on which you kind of share on Tell the Truth Monday.
Yep.
It was around, tackling margin, all
Yep.
those. So how do you think the team is doing around tackling margin?
Yeah, we've it's been closer than we've liked in the last few weeks, meaning 10, 8, 10, with the other team. And so that's what we, want to make sure we do. I would say ours is a little higher in some spots, and I think that's probably because we cover more, Candy, on the kicks, if that makes sense, where we kick it short or kick it into the end zone, because they're both. But at the end of it, it's the space tackles. That's the ones that you can't make sure, because those end up being longer ones. So the tracking and the leverage. So over the last 2 weeks, we were able to work on that more, and so that was good. That's something that, fundamental-wise, we need it big. And so I'd say we started lower, picked up, and like most things, a little dip, and I think we're about to come up on the other end. So I think we were here, we went up, dipped again, and now I think it can take off again. I like the intent of where we're at. I thought if there was a shot on tackling, Jeremy Chin had a really good one, and it was tough, and it was physical, and he used his shoulder. He didn't lead with his head. He hit him in the strike zone where he didn't hit the player in the head, and it's a great message to me, Candy, that you can play really tough football, and we can also do it safely. And for anybody who would watch that game, that was one hell of a hit. And it was one that we thought was a fumble. It wasn't, but it was a tough hit, using the shoulder, put his head to the side, the player didn't get, and I thought, that is it. That's what we're teaching. And that's what I want that to be the example. That you don't get much tougher than that tackle. And it was done safely and tough. And that's what I want us to be about. Never to put our team or the other guys in jeopardy, but doing it tough.
And after watching the film, your overall thoughts on what the Tennessee Titans do very well?
A lot. I thought this is a tough team, and I was been impressed defensively with what I've seen at the line of scrimmage, the way they've played on third down. Thought Arden Key and just inside the ability for them, stunts and games, to work that, I've been impressed by. Offensively, I know a lot about Calvin Ridley, the ability for him on deep ball and tracking for that. And I know a lot with Tony Pollard as well, but those are two that really jump out to me that have playmaking abilities once they have the ball in their hands. So that's one of the things. Then from a place kicking standpoint, they've been really on point. I'm not sure, it might be 31 or 32, something, Candy, that's a really, really good margin. So those are a few of the things that we talked about with the team that we, paid special attention to, going into the week.
Take 2 more. Good.
You guys are facing Jeffrey Simmons this week, one of the many Pro Bowl defensive linemen you guys have faced. This is about Duran. Where's Duran right now relative to the guys that are viewed as the top ones in the league? Because obviously he's trending in that direction and doesn't feel like.
Yeah, that's probably a better one for later. Just from the comparison side, we're just working as hard as we can to get him as good as we can. Like going against Jeffrey and seeing him play in this week, you're watching that guy for that week, but as we're going through it, we're just trying, man, to dig in and say, where can we improve? And that's not just for Duran, but for all the guys. So probably a better for end of the season kind of comment, honestly.
What have you seen from Duran?
I think the square at the line of scrimmage, when it's combination blocks, I think that's where John Heap plays with very good strength, and those are some things. So he's stout at the line. That's, what I've seen the most from him.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate
All right, guys, you guys have a good one, and we'll see you on Sunday. Thank you. We do it tonight. So for years, we figured it out that Thursday was just like, I got more to do. So Friday night is Thanksgiving at the Quinn's. So, all right. So we'll be good. All right. Have a good one, everybody.